Gildan Media, a division of Recorded Books, presents Working Relationships, Using Emotional Intelligence to Enhance Your Effectiveness with Others, revised, by Bob Wall, narrated by Noah Michael Levine. Preface. Welcome to a conversation about work. This is a book for anyone who works for a living and finds the interpersonal side of work puzzling or challenging at times. You may be thinking, well, who doesn't? Almost everyone experiences difficult relationships at work. One troublesome relationship can ruin what might otherwise be very enjoyable and fulfilling work. If you can't seem to get along with a coworker, it can ruin your day. If you can't get along with your boss, you may find yourself looking for another job. Being able to build effective working relationships is one of the most important factors in determining both your success and your satisfaction at work. So, what are you to do when you just can't seem to make an important relationship work? This book will provide you with answers to that question. Behind Closed Doors. I am about to tell you more about myself than you probably want to know, but what I do for a living is the source of almost everything you're about to hear. So, bear with me for a moment while I tell you a little bit about my work. I want you to know that I'm not an ivory tower theorist who writes about work without engaging with people who actually do work. I have been lucky enough to create a way to make a living talking to other people about what they do for a living. I've been a full-time consultant since 1980, specializing in the assessment and development of people and teams within organizations. My training and development projects usually begin with an organizational snapshot, a series of private conversations with managers and staff from my client's company. My intent is to learn as much as an outsider can about what life looks like to those inside the organization. I want to hear about what people love about their jobs, as well as what concerns them and what changes they might like to see made. I also ask for their assessment of the people they work with, especially people in management positions. Given the promise of confidentiality and the invitation to talk about whatever might be on their minds, people are usually eager to unload. And what do they want to talk about? Other people. They tell me about problems with managers and supervisors. I hear about conflicts with coworkers and problems working with other departments. I hear about long-standing personality conflicts and the difficulty of resolving emotionally charged issues. I then spend some time with individuals and teams working on solutions to any problems that surfaced in the interviews. I also lead workshops and have worked with participants in leadership and team development seminars all across the country. All told, I have spent literally thousands of hours with individuals and with groups, exploring the issues of concern to them and developing tools to enable people to work. I wanted to tell you a little about my work because I want you to understand that the information and communication strategies you'll find in this book are based on what I have learned from people I've met in consulting and training projects. On my own merits alone, I have little to offer in the form of wisdom that can help you find ways to be happier and more successful in your working life. But I do have something of great value to offer you in the time we will have together. I've spent years learning about work from people in all walks of life, from company presidents to blue-collar workers. The stories in this book are their stories. The lessons offered in this book belong to them. I see myself as a conduit, privileged to be in the position to be able to share what I have learned working with so many people just like yourself. The information and communication strategies presented in this book have undergone development for almost 2 decades. These materials have been taken out into the workplace by my clients and continually refined based on what has and hasn't worked as they applied these strategies in coping with the challenges of their work. There is not a single concept or skill in this book that hasn't stood the test of application in the world of work. The principles and tools you will find in this book will work for you. An overview. The first section of this book examines relationships in the workplace. One of the most important distinctions to make when we work with people is sorting out the mix of personal and professional relationships. We will be looking at how to bring clarity to these relationships in a way that allows us to work with people, disagree without taking things so personally, and still maintain the friendships that add so much to the quality of our working lives. The next section presents a practical methodology for understanding and building teamwork. Every company talks about the importance of teamwork. In job interviews, most of us profess to be team players. Unfortunately, most people arrive in the workplace without a practical understanding of teamwork, how to build an effective team, and how to diagnose the problem when teamwork breaks down. This section offers a simple model for understanding teamwork and points to the agreements that need to be in place for people to be able to work together effectively. The model also becomes a lifesaver in times of conflict, providing a way of more accurately putting your finger on what is going on and what you need to do to fix it. The first two sections can be thought of as offering thinking skills that will enable you to understand the complex challenges of working relationships and maintaining effective teamwork with your coworkers. The third section gets to the heart of teamwork, communication. It is one thing to understand teamwork and conflict. It is quite another to be able to talk about it, especially when teamwork has gone south and relationships are close to the breaking point. This section offers you tried and true methods for preparing to raise issues and engaging in conversations that make things happen, all the while with an eye on maintaining your personal and professional relationships with the people involved. The last section of the book addresses what you can do to clarify your aspirations and seek out the kind of personal feedback that will help you see yourself more clearly and make any necessary course corrections. We will end our study of working relationships with strategies for maintaining more satisfying personal connections with people you think of as both friends and colleagues. A conversation about work. I've done my best to make this book an enjoyable and easy experience. I have done everything I can to avoid producing a dry academic presentation of what can be a complex topic. The book offers practical strategies and suggests things for you to do that will prove well worth the time you invest in them. In the months it took me to complete this book, I thought about it as a conversation in which you and I were discussing working relationships and some of the lessons we have learned to make them richer, more meaningful, and more productive. But conversations require both people to be engaged in the discussion. Otherwise, what might look like a conversation is really just a long monologue, with one person doing all the talking. Understanding this book in that way might be interesting, but ultimately might not make all that much difference in your life. Therefore, I have designed the book to be more like a workshop. Good workshops, especially those designed to improve skills, have to involve participants in three ways. First, the trainer must provide information to help broaden the participants' understanding of the topic being explored. Second, the workshop should include opportunities for participants to explore their own attitudes and beliefs about the topic of the event. If they are to use what is being taught, the event should lead participants through an exploration of the value of the content being delivered and of how existing attitudes and beliefs can either promote or inhibit the transfer of training to situations outside the workshop. Finally, the workshop must include skills and opportunities to practice and sharpen those skills. Your part. In a book, the best I can do is provide information and strategies that can make a difference in your working relationships. The rest is up to you. I have included exercises for you to explore your feelings and beliefs about working relationships. There are many skill application exercises designed to prepare you to take action and make things happen for yourself and for your company. If you follow the directions and devote time to doing the written exercises and conversational assignments, this book offers you the opportunity to create a turning point in your life at work. Many of the exercises direct you to write about very personal topics. Others ask you to identify relationships at work in need of repair. You may choose to do the exercises in a journal or at your computer. By all means, do the work I ask you to do. Most of the exercises are short and easy to complete. The time you invest in completing the exercises will be more than worth it. Over the years, I have been blessed to get to know people in all walks of life working at every level of their organizations, from company presidents to the people who actually do the work. Starting with an interest in developing practical communication strategies stripped clean of any unnecessary psychological jargon, my work has enabled me to spend untold hours talking with people about their work, learning from them what works and what doesn't work in the real world of the workplace. What you will find in this book has stood the test of time. The concepts and communication strategies have been developed and refined based on what I have learned from my clients in countless training rooms and consulting projects over the course of my career. I want to make you a promise. This book will work for you if you do your part. The tools you will find here will help you build more effective working relationships. Chapter 1. Working Together. It is hard to imagine a job that does not require interaction with people. Most of us, for instance, have a boss to deal with, requiring ongoing communication and an understanding of what we are to do and how we are supposed to do it. I was doing a consulting project with a high-tech manufacturing company, and was talking to a team member about the company and how he felt about his job. "I really like what I do for a living," he said. "This job enables me to put my training to use, and I'm learning new skills as I work on the new product we are developing. In some ways, this job is everything that I could have hoped for." "Then why are you updating your resume and starting to look for a new job?" I asked. Here was his response. "If the work were all I had to focus on, I'd be in great shape. But the personal climate here is awful. My boss is such a jerk. She almost never communicates, at least about anything positive. All she does is focus on minor mistakes. I feel like she is constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting to jump on me about something I do wrong. And her definition of wrong is doing anything any other way than she would have done it. I don't have room to breathe. I think it might be time for me to move on." Most of us also have coworkers requiring coordination of efforts, sharing resources, and managing the complications of working together. Another conversation I had with an employee on a different project focused on the problems a person was having with her coworkers. "There is so much tension on my unit. Most of it is caused by one of the nurses who is so hard to get along with. Nothing we do pleases her. She is always complaining about her hours and her workload. When something goes wrong, it is never her fault. She is always looking for someone else to blame. Because I'm new here, I'm the one who gets stuck working with her when she needs help. I'm tired of listening to her complain about the administration and problems in her personal life. With an attitude like hers, I'll bet she has problems at home. Nothing I learned in nursing school prepared me to deal with people like her. I am just about to the end of my rope, and I don't know what to do about it." This is a book about relationships in the workplace and how to make them work for you. We will be doing a great deal of work on how to understand working relationships and what you can do to improve relationships in need of repair. Exercise 1 asks you to reflect on people at work and to identify relationships in need of improvement. We do things because it pays off in some way. Not dealing with relationship issues pays off in some way. For example, we get to avoid taking the risk of starting a conversation that might not go well. We may also be avoiding taking responsibility for the relationship and finding a degree of satisfaction in blaming the other person. What is the payoff you get for not talking about your concerns? Is it worth the price you pay in terms of the impact on your effectiveness and your satisfaction? Don't do anything yet. We will be looking at how to prepare for just these kinds of conversations. For now, ask yourself if you are open to the possibility of taking action to improve these relationships. Exercise 1. Identifying relationships to improve. Identify at least 2 people at work with whom you would like to develop a better relationship. If these relationships do not improve, how will that affect your effectiveness on the job and your level of job satisfaction? If you have not made an attempt to address any outstanding issues with these people, why not? What is it that is getting in the way of your acting with each of them? Working effectively with others. Being able to work effectively with people is one of the most important factors in determining our success on the job. Certainly, mastering the technical side of your job is important. If you are an airline pilot, you'd better be able to put the plane on the runway every time, regardless of how well you get along with the rest of the flight crew. You would never recommend a doctor to a friend by saying, "Dr. Jones is not much of a doctor, but he's a nice guy. I think you'll like him." But as important as technical mastery may be, it may not be enough to guarantee success. I have seen technically skilled people lose their positions because they were unable to get along with the rest of the team. In a survey by Marlene Lozada that looked into reasons why people get fired, deficient job skills played only a minor role. 90% of firings were the result of poor attitudes, inappropriate behavior, and difficulties with interpersonal relationships. Think about that for a moment. 9 times out of 10, people who lost their job had the technical ability it took to do the job. They could not get along with other people, or they had attitudinal problems which, in my experience, usually show up in the form of disrupted relationships anyway. Others may not go so far as to lose their jobs, but their inability to work with people may put a lid on their promotion. Some highly skilled people stay where they are in the organization because it is all too apparent that they would make terrible managers. Other studies have supported the importance of developing good interpersonal skills. Companies look for people who demonstrate the ability to do their jobs well. Then they promote them with the hope that they can manage other people who are doing similar work. Once promoted, what often separates the successful from the not-so-successful managers is their mastery of interpersonal skills. Success in leadership positions requires the ability to work with and through other people. If you are already in management, you know how important it is to be able to work with a wide variety of people. You may not yet be in a leadership position, but see that as the next step in developing your career. If so, you will certainly want to continue demonstrating that you can do your job well, but you will also need to show that you can work well with other people. Job satisfaction. Our capacity to get along with other people is important for yet another reason: job satisfaction. We devote a huge proportion of our adult life to work. The quality of our life at work is a critical factor in determining the quality of our entire life. If you work 40 hours a week, you are likely to devote at least 80 to 90,000 hours of your adult life to work. Your work had better be gratifying if you expect to have a full and satisfying life. One of the most important factors in determining how people like their jobs is the quality of the relationships they find there. No matter how much we might like a particular task the job requires of us, it is hard to stay excited about a job if we get along terribly with our boss or our coworkers. On the other hand, working with great people will even make a routine job more enjoyable. We spend a great deal of time with people on the job. On work days, most of us spend more of our waking hours with our coworkers than we do with our families. We may also work with some of the same people for years, day in and day out. So the quality of these relationships is vitally important to us. Spend a few moments reflecting on the questions posed in Exercise 2. Exercise 2. How coworkers contribute to your working life. Think about 2 or 3 coworkers whose presence makes your work more enjoyable. List 3 to 5 of their personal qualities that leave you feeling that way about them. If you could consistently be the kind of person you would like to be, what are the qualities you would like for your coworkers to appreciate about you? Identify one thing you could do today to make a coworker's day a bit brighter. Now, do it. It's never been easy. You would think that we would have figured out how to work together by now. After all, we have been doing it for a very long time. But I am willing to bet that we started having trouble with this when we first started gathering together in groups. I can picture the cave dwellers sitting around a fire in a cold, damp cave, complaining about the guy who didn't do his share on the hunt that day. And from the dawn of time, there have always been people trying to tell other people what to do. Who does he think he is, trying to tell me how to throw a spear? I've forgotten more about hunting than he will ever know. Working together still isn't easy. The truth is, almost everyone has times when dealing with people is one of the most aggravating things about working. We may have a coworker who is difficult to get along with. We may have a boss who is hard to get to know and almost impossible to please. Or we may have occasional problems working with customers. Working with people can be frustrating. It can get so bad that interpersonal problems may be the one thing that keeps us from finding satisfaction in the job we have at the time. We may like the work itself and the customers we serve, and we may even enjoy working with most of our coworkers. But one difficult relationship at work can ruin your whole day, day after day. Making things happen. I have talked to many people in all walks of life about things that are frustrating them at work. When people talk about their frustrations, they usually focus on other people as the source of their problems. Managers complain about people who are not performing as expected. Employees complain about managers who are not sharing information or delegating authority. And everyone complains about coworkers, talking about individuals who don't pull their own weight, or people who are hard to get along with. At some point in the conversation, I always ask, have you talked to this person about this? Have you tried to solve this problem? More often than not, the answer is, are you kidding? I can't talk to him or her about that. Making things work at work begins with your willingness to step forward and make things happen. When things at work are not going as well as you would like them to, I think the only useful question to ask is, how am I the source of this? What am I doing or not doing that is contributing to things turning out the way they are? When things are not going the way you want, it is all too easy to look for someone else to blame, your boss, a coworker, management, or the ever-popular politics. But the conversation we are having about your life at work is not about the other person. It's about you. There is almost always something you are doing or not doing that is playing a part in things turning out the way they are. Sometimes I hate taking my own advice. When something doesn't go my way, I would prefer to blame some other person as the source of the problem. I must confess that I may even find a certain satisfaction in complaining to friends about what a raw deal I'm getting. But if I look carefully, I almost always find something I could have done differently, or I will find something I should have done but did not do that is contributing to the situation. Not long ago, I had a reminder of this in my personal life. My wife and I bought a house and had it remodeled. We hired a painting contractor who did such a poor job that we had to terminate our contract with him, hire another painter, and pay the expense of having the interior painting redone. Let me assure you, this incident was good for a lot of justifiable complaining to friends. One day, I was talking to a client about the question, how am I the source of this? I started thinking about my self-righteous anger at the painter and looking at my role in how things had turned out. My fingerprints were all over the situation. We should have interviewed more painters and gotten more bids. We should have checked references. We should have inspected his work more closely from the very beginning of the project. In all kinds of ways, I played a role in things turning out the way they did. As a friend of mine once said so well, it is impossible to get dumped on unless you first properly position yourself. Our circumstances are always about us, not the other guy. Suppose you do not get enough coaching and feedback from your boss. Have you asked for it? Maybe you have a staff member whose performance is less than satisfactory. Have you been offering this person corrective coaching? Maybe you have a coworker who is hard to work with. Have you tried to reach out and resolve any issues affecting your relationship? Perhaps an even more important question to ask in any of these situations at work is, am I willing to look at my role in this situation, or do I just want to keep on blaming other people? Looking at our own role is not just a way to blame ourselves and feel bad about how we do things. On the contrary, once we start to look at how we participated in the way things turned out, we will begin to identify things we can do to resolve this situation and avoid similar problems in the future. Try the exercise that follows. Exercise 3. Are you a victim or a volunteer? Identify 2 examples of recent events at work that left you feeling angry, frustrated, or otherwise upset. Describe each incident, exploring the following questions in sequence. Who else is involved in this situation, and what are your feelings about them? In what ways do you feel other people are at fault in this situation? In what ways did you participate in determining the outcome of this situation? Are there things you did or things you didn't do that played a role in the outcome? What could you do in the future to avoid the same outcome in similar situations? Talking to each other. Let me tell you something about consultants, at least consultants who do the kind of work I like to do. My work isn't all that complicated. All I ever do is talk to people behind closed doors and find out what people are not talking about. Then I bring people together in pairs or teams and say something brilliant like, it looks to me like you need to talk. Of course, I do bring a body of information and communication skills to help make the conversation productive, but in reality, you don't really need consultants like me. Everything you need to make your job start getting better is just a conversation away from movement in the right direction. Everything your company needs to be great is already present in the hearts and minds of the people who work there. But all too often, these ideas go unexpressed and unheard, in part because we sometimes do not know how to talk to each other about work. If people like you would just start talking to each other, people like me would have to go find a real job. It's silence that kills organizations. Conflict, even poorly handled, may even be preferable. At least we'd be talking to each other, and some good might come out of that. Do you have some conversations that are needing to happen? Reflect on the questions posed in Exercise 4. Working with other people may be challenging, but it does not have to be impossible. I've spent nearly 20 years studying the interpersonal aspects of work, and I want you to know that there is a better way. Exercise 4. Do you have a conversation that is not happening? List 3 situations in your company that would get better if only the right people would get together to talk and listen to each other. Why do you suppose these conversations are not happening? List at least one situation where you could possibly be the one to step forward to start a conversation that is dying to happen. What is holding you back? Part 1. The Tangled Web of Relationships in the Workplace. Chapter 2. Friends and Colleagues. Our relationships at work are complicated by the fact that we have two relationships with many of our coworkers. One is personal, the other professional. The purpose of personal relationships, on or off the job, is to establish some form of personal intimacy. These relationships have a lot to do with our personal feelings about each other. We may enjoy spending time with someone because we share common interests, we feel comfortable with each other, and we enjoy talking to each other. Personal relationships at work can be very important to us. Some of us work for years with the same group of people. Given the amount of time we spend with coworkers, comfortable and supportive personal relationships can make work all the more enjoyable. Some of our personal relationships at work will be quite casual. With some people, we may talk about our weekends or interests we may have in common. We share jokes or pass on the latest rumors we have heard about something that is going on in the company. We may never see each other outside the job, yet the personal comfort and rapport we find with each other make the work more enjoyable. Other relationships at work go far beyond casual conversations in the break room. We sometimes connect with people at work in a very significant way. We may develop friendships that last far longer than our stay at any particular job. Many people date or even marry someone they first met on the job. Think for a moment about other jobs you held prior to your current position. You probably remember certain people with real affection. It may be someone who had a particularly outrageous sense of humor, or it may be someone who seemed to always be in an optimistic mood, whose approach to work and to life made him or her a joy to spend time with. The opportunity to work with people we care about adds richness and joy to the quality of our working life. Unfortunately, some of our relationships are not so pleasant. Not liking someone is also a form of personal relationship. We are thrown into relationships with all kinds of people when we work for a living. We inevitably will have coworkers we would never choose as friends or even as acquaintances. Nevertheless, there they are, day after day, at the desk next to ours or on the job site. If we had our choice, we would cut some of these people out of our lives, never to have them darken our doorway again. But work is work, and there you have it. When we take a job, our coworkers are part of the package. When we work with people, like them or not, we have a second relationship to build with them. This relationship overlaps with the personal relationship we may have with the same people. Professional relationships exist for one purpose and one purpose only, to get the job done. That is why we are in a relationship in the first place. Companies do not bring people together to be friends. We are not there to develop some form of an extended family. Our primary purpose is to accomplish work, and the company is depending on us to be able to work together to make that happen. Personal and professional relationships involve two fundamentally different ways of relating to the same person. Having two kinds of relationships with the same people sets us up for trouble in the following ways. Failure to make the distinction about what is personal and what is professional is one of the most common sources of breakdown in relationships in the workplace. Personal and professional relationships have different purposes. Personal and professional relationships require different methods of communication. Sorting out the complexity of relationships at work. In theory, sorting out personal and professional relationships at work sounds simple. Work is work, personal is personal. So, what's the problem? If we could easily keep these two relationships separate in our own minds, it would be a giant step toward our being able to work together effectively. Unfortunately, the blend of personal and professional sometimes gets hopelessly confused and creates problems for people at work. Even people with the very best of intentions find themselves stumbling over this critical distinction about working relationships. We're just one big happy family. When I'm getting to know business leaders at the start of a consulting project, I always ask them about what they do to create an environment in which people feel good about the work they are doing and the company they work for. Some of them get almost misty-eyed when they talk about their company and the people in it. They talk about how much the people in the company care for each other. They talk about holiday celebrations and the picnics they have in the summertime. They talk in glowing terms about the warm family feeling that marks the culture of their organization. Sometimes they sound as if they are talking about their own children. Much like loving parents, they sometimes go to extraordinary lengths to support people personally, going out of their way to assist them in times of crisis. I admire the motivation of leaders who speak in such loving human terms about their organization and the people who make it work. While they clearly are committed to running a business and make a profit in doing so, they have managed to stay in touch with some of the deeper, more human values of life. Unfortunately, these same owners and leaders are unintentional.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?